Hey friends, it's Chris, the Earthborn Alchemist, and today I want to talk to you about one of the most exciting topics there is to talk about, and that is permaculture. Permaculture is a buzzword. It's something that's becoming overly used and it's incorrectly used as well. And the reason I say that is because the understanding of what it actually means and how it relates to the world around us isn't super clear. Now, what is permaculture? The word is a blend of two words, permanent agriculture. And the word was devised by a couple of Australians back in the 70s, I believe. And they basically coined the term to talk about like a system of being able to have their crops look after themselves, essentially, in terms of the water, the soil, reproduction of the crops. It was all meant to manage itself like a contained ecosystem. And although I knew that, I never truly understood what permaculture was about. I used to think solar panels on the roof, a water tank out the back, a hydroelectric car in the garage, and a hydroponics setup, a little hobby hydroponics setup, and bam, I'm all about permaculture. What I didn't understand is that although those elements, yes, they can very much be a part of a permacultural system, what permaculture truly is, in the heart of it, is the relationships between these things. And that's why I'm sitting with you right now next to a brand new garden bed I've just made. And I wanted to share with you what I've done and how that relates to this term permaculture and what it means. So when we have garden beds, right, one of the things that we tend to do is we bring in nutrient dense soil from, Home Depot, from Bunnings, from wherever we go to buy our garden supplies. We fill up the garden beds. We even buy, prefabricated garden beds. We fill it up and then we put our sprinkler on, we hose, we bring extra water in, all that sort of thing. And we do that to try and cultivate plants and crops that don't generally want to grow in our conditions. So I'm in Central Florida. It is sand. There is very little nutrients in the soil here, and it's very hard to grow things that don't want to naturally grow here. So if you're talking about growing food crops, those food crops need to be friendly to the environment. Now, one of the things that I've been covering is your edible backyard, right? There are things that grow naturally in the soil here, or in the sand here, that are super edible and medicinal plants. And I've noticed as I'm cutting the grass here today in the backyard that what little grass is left, one of the things that was popping up all over the place was sow thistle, and there was another plant that has always grown through our yard in massive amounts, and that is the Biden species, so blackjack, cobbler's pegs. And as I'm cutting the grass today, I was super aware of how these, plants weeds were starting to grow all over the yard, and I didn't want to cut them because they're so useful. They are food, they're medicine. I don't want to cut them. So I decided that I was going to purpose this garden bed. And I don't know if you can see that, but I've already got bees coming in. These plants were growing in the yard, right, just randomly in the grass. I basically dug the soil up and agitated the soil. We'll talk more about agitation later. I agitated the soil, and then I came around, and wherever there was either sow thistle, which is right in front of me, or blackjack, I brought them over. I transplanted them. And they're a little wilty at the moment because they've been brought from the shade into direct sun, but these are hardy plants. They're going to spring back overnight. They're going to become full and they're going to love it. They've got their own garden bed now, so I'm not constantly trying to keep them at bay. The beautiful thing about these and how it relates to permaculture, when I finished building beehives, bees love blackjack flowers. They love them. It's one of the 3 big producers of honey in the state of Florida. Absolutely love it. So the bees are always coming in for those. Wherever they grow up in the yard, we're going to have bees, and the bees love that plant. The other thing is both of these plants, they grow from their own root stems, so they perpetuate themselves as crops, right? That's why they pop up everywhere. That's why you can't kill them as weeds, because they grow all over the place. You kill one, another one pops up. They now have a dedicated space to do that. Sure, they're still going to pop up in the grass, and when they do, I'll bring them over. This bed is going to grow incredibly full, and it will be overflowing with the plants, with a couple of plants that are both medicinal and food. Very cool. The other thing is they don't need nutrient dense soil. They grow in the sand, so I haven't had to bring in extra soil. I'm working with the ecosystem here. And they also don't need me to water them. Whenever the rain falls here, which doesn't happen that often at the moment, but when it does rain, that's all they need. They will grow when the water is there, and then they will just sit there and survive when there's no water, right? So I haven't had to bring in extra water. I haven't had to bring in extra soil. The garden itself, the bed itself, is made from a repurposed pallet, as all my garden beds are. And so you can see how this starts to tie in. Permaculture is about relationships. It is about the relationships between everything. So it's got nothing to do with the solar panels by itself. It's what the solar panels are doing and how that ties into your water treatment and water collection, and how that ties into the garden beds and the plants that are growing. It's those relationships between everything. That's what permaculture is referring to. My camera keeps falling over. It is windy here today. So that's what I wanted to share with you. Start taking a moment and look at the spaces in between everything. It's not about the things, it's about what exists in between those things. So, like I mentioned earlier, beehives. When I finished building beehives, we're then gonna have the bees interacting with the plants that grow from the lawn that I've repurposed into this garden bed I've built. So we're basically creating a self-perpetuating system here. That's the heart of permaculture. Go and have fun. Go and connect with the natural world. And you know what? While you're here, make sure you hit the subscribe button, because I'm going to have some pretty cool content coming your way. Have fun.